That was fantastic. Yes. Bachelard, everyone. All right, so my name is Trovarsi, and I am the moderator for this panel on education and manufacturers and synthesis, promoting education and diversity. And I am also the co-founder of Southern California Synth Society, where our purpose is to educate, facilitate interest in electronic music, synthesizers, and DIY builds through community events. So I am so honored to have this panel here today. And I'm going to ask each one of you to just state who you are and a little brief bit about your background before I get into the questions for the panel. All right, so let's start with Naomi.
Hi, my name is Naomi. I'm a designer, builder, and user of modular synthesizers. I make modules as omiindustriies, and I've taught a number of courses through Synth Lab and Ableton.
Nice. And Corry.
Yo, what's going on? This is Corry, B-Boy Tech. Also founder of Modbap Modular and B-Boy Tech Report and beatpeople.com. So yeah, building or being a creator of modular synths, synth modules is a new thing for me, but I'm super excited to be here and represent diversity in that space too. So yeah, good to be here. What up?
Nice. And Sarah.
Hey everyone, I'm Sarah Belle Reid. I'm a performer. I work mainly with synths and trumpets and homemade instruments and things like that. Often just piles of weird objects that I find lying around the house become my instruments. I also teach at some colleges in Southern California, and I teach online as well, a modular synth class called Learning Sound and Synthesis.
Nice.
Yeah.
And LaFrae.
Hi, you guys. Thanks, Trovarsi. My name is LaFrae Ski. I perform under the name LaFrae, daughter of Drexia. I'm the executive director of the Willie Mae Rock. Can you guys hear me? Did I freeze?
Yeah. Nope, you're good.
Hi, my name is LaFrae Ski. I perform under LaFrae, daughter of Drexia. I'm a composer. I'm a curriculum writer. I'm a professional touring musician. And I'm the executive director of Willie Mae Future Sounds, a new curriculum in New York City that focuses on synth, STEAM, and social justice for girls and gender expansive youth, and currently serving about 300 POC girls a week in our 3 partnership programs.
Excellent. Excellent. And Wes.
Hey, I'm Wes Marcorelli from STEM Modular. I am a musician and electrical engineer. I started STEM Modular a few years back as a way to make kind of approachable, affordable, accessible Euro-rack modules, and kind of as like an educational outreach in a way as well. Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you all for being here. So how we'll run this panel today is I have a few questions for you all to answer. Thank you everyone in the chat for being here. Thank you for your support throughout this event. If you do have questions for the panel, please drop them in the chat and we'll circle back and get those questions answered. And as a reminder, all the links are in the description for each of the panelists, and we will be adding some additional links as we get through the discussion for the hour. All right, so my first question then, all of you have been doing so many things, so many hats, artists, developers, now educators. Like, what drew you to make education a priority in your journey? Is any volunteer would like to start answering that?
Yeah, actually, I'll jump in there. For me, the motivation was just I knew that, you know, when it comes to hip hop, we have our aesthetic, we have what we do, and we do what we do really well. But the reason I started incorporating modular into beat making and hip hop is because I felt like I wanted to push the envelope and explore new things and see where I could go. You know, I'm not traditionally trained in the sense of most musicians that are out there, and I'm not, you know, everything about what I do feels unconventional. Like when I had a band, it's weird for me to be the person making the music, and the band would play the music, and we'd go out and I'd rap and do that sort of thing. But I kind of feel like when I got into modular synthesis, it was a way for me to express myself a little more expansively, the way my musician friends would express themselves. So for me, it was like a new world opening up. And you know, everything that I've done with Modbap and all the philosophies behind it is to kind of bring along hip hop and say, yo, there's new things we can explore and still remain hip hop and not have to compromise who we are as a community and as a culture. So that's what's pushed me to, you know, make the things that I've made and do the things that I do, and even into the teaching and mentoring and stuff like that. So that's definitely been my motivation.
Yeah, I could just add that, yeah, synthesizers were kind of like the reason that I feel like able to become an engineer, like having that context and the experience with synthesizers really just helped me so much when I, you know, even struggling still with that, it was just having that vision and kind of, yeah, the context there just really helped out a lot, and kind of like wanted to just share that experience or be able to put synthesizers in front of more people and just give people the opportunity to explore. Not everyone's going to become an engineer, but you know, there's just kind of like a neurodiversity in learning, I feel like, and some people might just connect with information more if they are able to experience it in a way like modular synthesizers.
Yeah.
I'll jump in. Oh, go ahead, Naomi.
Yeah, just add to that. I'm, you know, mostly self-taught, but I've got a little bit of experience from other people in the community, and everyone that I've got experience from really drove home the idea is once you have this knowledge, you've accumulated this knowledge, it's kind of your responsibility to pass it on to other people and kind of continue the cycle of education and knowledge.
Definitely. It's like you got to give it away to keep it, sort of thing.
I hear that, Trovarsi. Yeah. And you know, the thing for me was I basically have been I play all music. I don't really believe in genres. That's a whole other panel. However, as working as a jazz musician, the whole process of the oral tradition from the African American experience is so important in terms of passing on information. And when I started working with young people, I also just really loved seeing how that aha moment happening with young people. And I really grew to prioritize not just my own career goals, but being of service through music, because music is not just to entertain us, but to bring us together and heal and build community.
I love what you just said so much and feel so, yeah, so strongly about that. I think for me, I come from a classical music background playing acoustic music, and then I wanted to learn about electronic music and how modular synths worked from the moment that I first saw one in a studio. And I was so intimidated for a whole lot of reasons, so unbelievably intimidated that I kind of like talked myself out of it and put it off for like years and years, even though it was this thing that I was so curious about. And then finally, you know, I ended up interacting with some really generous, wonderful folks who were patient and kind and kind of showed me the ropes. And I was like, oh, this isn't as terrifying as I had made it seem for whatever reason. And that was a big moment for me to just really want to kind of, you know, share that with other people who might have similar internal dialogue like I had, thinking like, this is too technical for me. I cannot wrap my head around this. I'm starting, I'm a trumpet player. Like, I don't understand the tech. So that was a big deal. Yeah.
Did anyone else have anything to add before I?
Yeah. Well, adding on to what Frey said, there is something that's really dope when you start to realize that, your role in music and this, all of this stuff that we do is more, for me, it was an awakening moment to get to the point where it was about the we, not the me. You know what I mean? And so that's why, I've had a very different experience promoting a community and this thing that we all stand behind and this thing that we're about and that we're curious about and passionate about than I had when I was just promoting, like, yo, I just made a new record. Check out my music. You know what I mean? And it's just been a very different experience. So I wholeheartedly agree with what Frey said.
Nice. And I feel like just even myself, working with SoCal Synth Society and giving various workshops, that I feel I've discovered that the importance of just even being a woman and a person of color and being able to represent and show that to kids, like, just so they can see that, that it's, so they may see somebody that's like them, so they can say like, oh, I can do that too, and it's just such a revelation, I think. All right. So my next question then is, being that you guys are, everyone is so heavily involved in education and it just seems like such a huge part of everything that you're doing in conjunction to creating modules and performing, like, how has this impacted your music and your personal music, like, or if it
like,
happened at all, like.
I really like, getting the perspective of people who don't necessarily know as much as I do in terms of modular. Like, you get really interesting ideas when people don't have, the correct way of doing something. You kind of can find different ways of doing things you might not have otherwise thought of, and kind of like incorporating that into your music and artistic practice.
Yeah, totally. I bringing like a system that like I made and feel like I know like pretty well in front of a group of kids, and then having them do stuff that like I never thought of and kind of pull things out of it has been just like a really awesome experience, and always really inspiring. Yeah, for my own music, I feel like I'm trying to, I have this 60 HP system that is like designed to be used in schools or after school programs, and just really digging into that and finding like how much I can get out of it. And additionally, then as I'm thinking about module design, like how can I make stuff that's going to kind of bridge that gap between STEM and like electronic music production in a way where it's usable and like really powerful and inspiring as a musical tool, but then also like kind of doesn't hide or obscure too much, that there's still a lot there that can be pulled out in like a more, I guess, maybe like traditional educational sense.
Sarah, do you have anything to add to that at all? Or I know
Sure. A big thing. Yeah. A big thing for me is I teach using VCV Rack mostly. For those of you who might not know what that is, it's like a virtual software that kind of emulates hardware Eurorack, and it's free. So it's the main reason why I use it to teach with. And I started using it to teach, admittedly, but then I've been using it so much in my personal music, and it has just expanded my workflow. And so I feel really grateful because it kind of started off as like this nice, accessible tool, and it is. And on top of that, have the joy of now being able to, infinitely expand my modular system without needing actual hardware modules, which is really a great indulgence.
Nice. And I just watched you were on another panel today where you gave a few examples of that, and I definitely need to go back. And sometimes you just have you have all these ideas, and it's just something is presented to you and you just forget, like, even if it's something simple, it's just, so thank you for that too. So there was a question in the chat before we move on to another topic that I have here for you guys. It was by Slim Pickens. This is for Naomi and Wes. Do you have a favorite chip or open source software project you like to use for your maker work? Maybe for free with the kids.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead, Naomi.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I really like using kind of CMOS logic ICs in terms of teaching, and kind of that kind of low level sort of, it's not programming, it's kind of using logic to kind of create these kind of basic building blocks of synthesis. So kind of like those kind of inverter oscillators, or using logic gates or that sort of thing, I think is really, that really connect with and really like, and I use those also in my own designs.
Yeah, I would second that. That was definitely like the first step, was some simple CMOS projects. There's just so much that you can get out of those chips, and they are pretty robust. And also just like kind of more simple, like comparators is a thing that I've been using a lot lately. Is some op-amp comparator chips, the LM339, and there's also the I don't know if it's the Curtis chips that are like the 3340, and there's some basically like synthesizers on a chip that are really nice, because if you're starting out with any kind of synth design project, that is pretty accessible, I think, and there's a lot of information out there.
Maybe that's something we can add some additional links after the panel to give out some of that information. All right, so now that we've kind of laid a little foundation about your philosophies and a little bit about your background, I know we didn't get that deep into that per se, but just about your philosophy and approach, let's talk about the plans. I know you all have various things that are coming up and happening, and you're always working on something. So I know, Sarah, for example, I'm going to just call you out right now. I know you have something immediate, like, or it's approaching fairly quickly. I know you're launching something. So let's start with you and your plans for what you have.
Sure. Thanks. Yeah. I think in about 3 weeks, so in mid-June, the summer cohort, I guess, of Learning Sound and Synthesis will kick off. So I'm very excited about that. And it runs for about 2 to 3 months. And it's basically, I guess I can just say really briefly what it is for those of you who aren't familiar. It's a fully online program, so you can kind of be anywhere. Obviously, I think that's pretty standard at the moment. And it's designed to teach you, to kind of walk you from the very beginning of working with synthesis, sound design, specifically with modular synths. And as I mentioned, we use VCV rack. So you don't need, any hardware synth at all, just a computer that will run, access to a computer that will run VCV rack. We kind of start at the beginning. We go through like what all of it means, how to connect it all together, some ideas for building out patches. There's lots of amazing guests that come in throughout, and Trovarsi might be one of them among some others. And we do live meetups as well to kind of chat about questions and work through patches and listen to music and kind of come together as a community. So I think there's a link in the description if anyone's curious to right now it's just kind of a wait list to sign up, and you'll receive more news. So yeah, couple
Very
weeks,
cool.
can't wait.
Very cool. Thank you for sharing that.
Thank you.
And Corry, I think of the moment that we had when we did the that workshop when Aaron was here, and
Yeah.
and I think that was like laid a little foundation, and that's my segue for you.
Yeah, that was a dope day, right? We got
Yes.
it was me and you and Aaron Geis from Afro Rack and Voltage Controller, and we went to East LA, and it was like a Afro Rack, let's teach the kids synthesis sort of thing.
Give a beat, forgiveabeat.org.
Exactly, forgiveabeat.org. And I've
Mhm.
done a couple of things with giveabeat.org. And that particular moment was kind of special because I do remember when we were introducing the kids to the Mother 32 and the idea that they should jump in and sort of dive in and learn this stuff. And they just kind of looked for a second like, we're not allowed to touch stuff.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I thought, right off the bat, it's like, I've always thought if you're teaching somebody something, how do you simplify it and just give it to them as simple and straight as possible? So that's the moment when I said, listen, you got.
We were huddling. We're like, and then you were like, I got an idea. I
Yeah,
remember.
So,
we're like basically like, okay, how do we break
I said,
down,
yo,
you know?
we're gonna do a few things here with this synth. You're gonna make sound, shape sound, and move sound. So make, shape, move. That's what you're gonna do. And so these knobs will allow you to make sound or shape sound or move sound. And it's almost like light bulbs went off around the room. And we, as the kind of teachers of that group, the four of us kind of split off at these different tables, and kids came over. You could see that with all of us on that page, everybody was just digging in. You know what I mean? And so that spurred when I created Modbap Modular, I knew that there was going to be an education piece to it. I knew that, for one, because I'm coming from a hip hop beat maker sort of perspective, and this is not familiar territory for that community. You know what I mean? So I knew that I would have to teach. So I created with the person who wrote the manual, Synth Dog, who wrote the manual for for the performer, the module that I created. We decided to write a beginner's guide to modular at Eurorack, and we called it Make, Shape, Move. And it's free. It's on the site for free on modbap.com. And, I'm happy to see that people download that. And then on top of that, a lot of beat makers who aren't familiar with this world grab that and they start to learn and say, oh, well, that kind of answers some questions. Even if it doesn't answer all the questions, it kind of gets them on the path to it. So yeah, that day was kind of the moment that kind of sparked this whole other sort of lane for me. So, and so there's going to be other things that come from that. So it'll be modbapcourses.com is coming along, and not ready quite yet, but I'm hoping to launch that this fall. So yeah, it's going to be fun.
Very nice. Very nice. LaFrae, good time.
Hey, yeah, I'm back.
Issues. It's okay.
I live on a peninsula. The Wi-Fi and everything gets funky, even with the Ethernet. So Willie Mae Future Sounds, we are moving into our 1,500 square foot sound studio. We've identified the challenge that we choose to address with our programming. The challenge is not, let kids touch synths or let kids who don't have access have access. The challenge is that there are statistics that show that girls and gender expensive youth actually will not be represented in STEAM careers moving forward as plentifully as other students. And also there's a lot of data about the middle school age of young people, especially girls, not raising their hands and shifting away from things that they would be interested in for a myriad of reasons. So we have a program that we're launching in the fall. It's 3 6-week cycles of a minimum of 90 hours of mentorship. So not only does the young person learn the building blocks of synthesis, they also attach that to personal development, agency, social justice issues, and composition. And the student will also have the opportunity, because it's about building a pipeline. Because what's the point of putting a synth in front of somebody if you don't have a way for them to have access? So we've made connections with people on the university level and in the professional fields, not expecting the students to necessarily become musicians per se, but allowing them to also see and meet women and gender expansive and trans people in these fields as well. And so our digital mentorship, and Trovarsi is one of our digital mentors, and we have like a whole host of people, and we're setting up our quadraphonic system. We're about to put a GoFundMe up, so if you guys want to jump in. And I also just want to say real quick, because I'm just really passionate, and this is a moment, because it's like, I really believe that you don't throw money at problems, you throw money at the solution. And we've really put a lot of effort into creating what we believe is a solution. And if anybody, if anybody turned your square black on Instagram, a year ago, and found yourself wondering, what else can I do? Please check out Willie Mae Future Sounds.
Nice. Thank you for sharing, Ray. And Wes, I know you've been pretty active recently as well. There's a new establishment in New York that you've been kind of collaborating with. Do you want to share everyone with that?
Yeah. It's as this 60 HP system has been coming together and is kind of like ready for the world. I've been just trying to get it to educators and places like Synth Library NYC, where they got a system, just trying to spread the synth around. This fall I'm excited because there is an 8th grade physics class here in the city that they got 9 systems, so they're going to be incorporating this small Eurorack system that I have into their coursework, which is exciting. So I've been talking to the teacher and kind of collaborating on curriculum, which has been really exciting, and hoping to kind of make that something that could continue to expand. I feel like I get messages from people fairly regularly that are interested in having something for a classroom or even like an after-school program, and it's exciting. I'm definitely, Future Sounds is going to get some systems in the fall as well, and it's just nice to have that and be able to like share that.
Working more with Synth Lab. More recently, I'm taking all of their donated Eurorack modules and curating 3 skiffs to put those in, and doing some lessons on those. And when the situation permits, I'll be doing more classes with them for women and non-binary people.
Nice. I'm looking forward to that. And I know that you and I have also done, we've had a couple online workshops, and I would love to resume that as well.
Yeah, that would be great.
Yeah, yes. So with this information that all these projects that you all have in the works, and what can the community, meaning our synth fam, those in the chat, what can they do to help each of this movement of education? Like what would you suggest someone to do aside? I know LaFrae, you mentioned monetary, like donations and supporting solutions, and that. Is there anything else, like even if it's a job, a task, something? Is there anything that comes to mind that could help each of you in your various areas?
Well, for me, I think finding an organization that's out there actively doing the work and help somehow, whether that's monetarily or whatever the thing may be. So, the two organizations that I've been involved with is afrorack.org and giveabeat.org. Give a Beat goes into the institutions like juvenile detention places and prisons, and they teach electronic music. The wild thing about something like that is that you don't know. When I went to the juvenile detention place to teach on my little force and teach electronic music, and here's how I make hip hop and all that kind of stuff. It was so striking to be in that space and to think about coming up in the Chicago school system and they look the same. It was just so, it was incredible to be there and just think like, yo, this looks like the schools I went to. It's just that there's gates all over them. And I like, whose damn idea was it to make the school system and the prison system look the same? It was just, to me, I had a problem kind of getting through that realization of what that was, and to see all of those kids and then have something there that was more of a positive experience to say, this is what I'm doing. You got cats were rapping and saying, yo, I do this and I do that, and I want to learn how to do this and do that. And so it's really a deep well of inspiration that these kinds of programs provide for folks. And AfroRack, on the other hand, me being from Chicago, they're in the systems, the school systems, are in the communities. And at one point, Aaron Geis was teaching in a space that was kind of like a truce zone. I don't know what else to call it, a peace zone. It was like an area of the city that a truce had been called for development and for teaching the kids. And so there could be some safety so they can come there and forget about everything that's around them and just kind of learn. So I would say, if you want to help out, and I mean, I hold myself to the same sort of standard. I still have stuff that I need to send to these places, right? But like, we should really be looking at places like that are hands and feet on the ground day and night, helping people out. You know what I mean? And just spreading this this thing that can be just something new and positive for kids to give themselves to, or just for people to give themselves to and learn more about. And even if they're not going to be all about that, it opens their minds to start thinking about other things. You know what I mean? So
Yes.
yeah, I would say find organizations like that you can support somehow.
And Naomi, being that you're working in the LA area, is there anything that you feel that our community can help contribute to some of the things that you've been working on?
Yeah, I mean, material support is always appreciated by organizations, but I think also kind of getting the word out and kind of spreading education, letting other people know kind of what's going on and what they can do, and kind of also just helping out, teaching on a one-to-one individual sort of level.
And LaFrae, I know, like you and I, we have had discussions about upcoming workshops and things of that nature. Is there anything that you feel like in your community as you're growing this program and soon, to be able to be open? Is there anything that you feel like volunteer work or anything that you feel like you could receive from the community?
Sure. Yeah, we're building our community as a result, because we've been running our programming since last summer when I started. As a result of that, we actually just did a program with a school for Black girls in Sao Paulo, Brazil. And so the fact that we can, and we had multiple students who participated who were not New York kids. So I think the hybrid reality is with us as a result of what we've learned. I think that getting the word out and letting your own networks know on social media, reposting, and financial support, and also just feel free to hit me up. I always say liberation is in the link up. I've offered to collaborate probably with every organization that's been mentioned today, and I sincerely believe that you know, a rising tide lifts all ships. And I think that this is a real moment where this synthing thing can move from a niche kind of boutique hobby to actually making a difference. It already is, but now we're at this vanguard of, you know, because you can teach, I mean, especially like Corry was saying, I first started using synths working in an alternative to incarceration program in the Bronx. And that program, what I saw, that's what really got me. It really taught deep listening in a way, and the sense of ownership that the young people had when they realized, I made this sound, I created this sound wave, I then like shifted it. So this really has the potential to just really make a major shift. You know, they call these kind of shifts like disruptive. This could be a disruptive technology to disrupt some of the patterns that I think that we've all been, you know, some of us have known it, but I think the last year has really revealed a real like systemic structural inequality, disparities that are having effects and ripple effects in the community. And it's like the synth community can actually lead the way in a lot of ways. So
I agree with you wholeheartedly. And I just, does anyone else have anything to add or want to contribute to that? Wes, I know you've.
Yeah, I just was gonna say, you know, part of what we do is like educational discounts and like trying to do whatever we can to, you know, spread the technology around. I have another full-time job and you know, sell modules online, some modules, and that kind of goes to subsidize helping get the gear out there. So anyone also, you know, kind of reiterating what LaFrae said, you know, hit us up if anybody is out there and like needs some gear or is just wants to collaborate in any way. I also think that there's some other folks that are doing like, I know there's like this like synth petting zoo idea where people kind of like bring their modulars out to like different events. And I think that in addition to putting stuff in front of kids and like I've also noticed that like sometimes like parents like don't really get what's going on. I've even seen kids that would like come up to like a booth that I'm at that are super excited and then like their parents are kind of like, what is all this stuff? Like, I don't get it. So in a way, almost like sharing it with like other adults or teachers and like kind of spreading the gospel of like modular synth because I think that like it's helpful for adults to realize that this can kind of be like a pathway into something that's not just like making noise all the time. Not that there's anything wrong with just doing that, but you know, that there's something else there too.
Thank you for that. And I just want to reiterate, there is a question that was in the chat, and it was about systems. But again, before we move on and kind of change the subject a little bit, I do want to just say to the chat, thank you for being here and just supporting the Synth Summit. And this is a testament to how we build our community. I do encourage everyone to go back and review the links of each of these people on the panel and think about what it is that you can do. Maybe it's something you think is very minor, but it could be very impactful. You never know. Like, I've worked with all of you and will continue to do so. And I would just say, take a moment and think about it. It could be something as simple as helping them with a social media thing or something. Every little thing does make a difference. There was a question in the chat about systems, and I apologize, I don't remember specifically who posed the question, but it was asking, what would you recommend for a beginning to start a new system? I believe that if you're still in the chat and you could drop it in there again, that would be great. But I believe it was something along those lines of building a first system. What advice would you give if you're thinking about that first system?
My advice is always be careful to go into Eurorack not knowing what your intention is, because things can get out of control really quickly. You know, what is it that you're trying to do? Are you mostly, for instance, when we talked on the panel yesterday, Fest Grandioso was on there, and he's like, yo, I'm a lo-fi beat producer and, you know, house music producer, electronic music producer. And all I knew is I wasn't looking to get into Eurorack to make all these, you know, for lack of a better term, grandioso sort of musical ideas, but he wanted to have a live processing rate for when he would be live. You got some people that want to do more of a mono synth. You have some people that are looking to, you know, go for it. But either whatever it is, first think about what it is you want to achieve and what you're trying to do, and then I think that'll at least, because there's so many options. You can do just about anything. I think there's probably modules out there that'll manifest a big rig truck if you, you know what I mean? So you really have to know what it is you're trying to do and what you'd like to do, right? For me, I just knew I wanted to get into modular, so I bought every damn thing and, you know, sold things and bought things. And then when I sat back and thought about performing live, I was like, yo, this is not making any sense. So really think about what it is you're trying to do, and then you'll start to see, okay, I think I may need to go in this direction. It's all effects, it's all effects. If it's mono synth, then you kind of have, let's start with what type of oscillator sound you might want to use. You know, the case thing is very different than it was 5 or 6 years ago. There's a lot of commercially available cases with power, and you don't have to figure out how to DIY your own power, and you don't have to figure out a lot of things that you would have had to really figure out from scratch back, you know, 5 years ago. So it's a very different landscape, a lot of options.
Yeah, I have to say that what we're doing at Willie Mae, and this is a question that I see like in the forums all the time and in chats of people's videos and stuff. But and like Corry said, like there's really no right answer. But what we're trying to do at Willie Mae is to have a myriad of options so that young people can have, there's just so many facets that could be their entry point. If you feel that it is important, I mean, I don't necessarily feel that it is important to go in understanding synthesis, because that may actually shut off someone that may find their way to understanding synthesis because they like making noise. And so to have a lot of options, I really love Wes's system because it's just so complete, like basically has all of the basic voices. So there is you can have fun. I actually have one and I patch with it. You can experiment. It's got all the different make, shape, move kind of stuff happening in it. But adults, it's a whole different story. I'm always like, well, do you want to do drums, or do you want to, you know, because do you want to do voice melodies, you know, special effects? There's a whole, but in terms of like what we're trying to do is just to have as many options as possible so that the kids can just experiment and find their way.
Yeah, I think definitely echoing that, having a kind of goal and a direction in mind, I think is really important. Starting with a bigger case than you think you need is probably a good idea, but also at the same time, not filling up the case immediately with all the modules. Get a couple modules, learn them well, and then expand from there.
That's great. That's great advice.
I think the good thing too is when getting started, you might want to look at semi-modular stuff because it's with semi-modular stuff, it's instant gratification, right? And then you can also expand on that once you start to realize like, yo, I don't have enough modulation, or I want a different filter option, or whatever the case. But semi-modular is a great place to start too.
There was another question in the chat. I know we're kind of creeping up on the top of the hours, but it was from Inner Freak, and it reads, for everyone, what is the biggest challenge in transitioning into the technical manufacturing side of the synth world as a musician? I guess if you had to do like a rapid answer, I know.
Making sure, for me, it was about although I wanted some, I learned early on, and like with all the things that I've launched, is that you are your customer, which means if you're thinking of a personality that you sell to, a customer personality you sell to, you are your customer. But also with that comes the challenge of make sure you're not creating something only for you, but you're making it for people like-minded that might want this thing as well. And that was a huge thing for me with Performer. I wanted to be sure this wasn't for me and my 3 or 4 friends, but that it would translate well into other people's racks and things, and that it would be practical as well. And that was some of the things that came up when I brought in a couple of people that did different genres to see how's this work for you. And then we even added some things and tweaked some things so that it'll be useful across, different use cases.
How about you, Reid?
Sorry, is that for me?
Yeah.
I'm just going to say that, there's running a business is different, and thinking about who's using what you're using. It wasn't necessarily easy. I had some experience. I worked with Verbus before I was doing my own thing, so that was really helpful transition to just really see someone else doing it.
Naomi, did you have something that you wanted to add to that?
Yeah, I would say, personally, I just make synthesizers for myself. And if other people want to buy them, that's cool. But it's mostly a tool for myself, first and foremost, which maybe might not sell as many synthesizers, but, people who like the things you do will gravitate to them. And there's all kinds of people who want all kinds of different things from Modular. So kind of finding your niche is important. And, not just making a Moog filter, kind of getting your personality out there and kind of, expressing who you are. Because there's such thousands of Eurorack modules to choose from, and kind of making something that you like and reflects your personality people will connect to that.
And I know we have a couple minutes, but Sarah, I know that you've been creating you're in the process of creating instruments as well. What is your...
this isn't so much a challenge, but maybe just something that's been really, really helpful for me. So it's kind of a flip on the question a bit, but my entry point into building and all of that was through working with Arduinos and like these little microcontrollers that you can get for like, $10 and kind of not soldering, but just like using jumper wires and kind of building little things and basically just really tapping into the open source community, the kind of maker community that is online. If anyone's interested in getting started with this stuff, for me, what I did was I would just go onto forums and onto places like Adafruit, where you can get things like Arduinos. And then there's all this open and
Sorry, you froze up just a moment there.
internet disappeared. Sorry. I glitched out for a minute. I think I'm back.
It was awesome.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes. No, we do hear you. But I'll take this moment to say thank everyone for being here and really contributing this information. And again, please visit everyone's links in the chat. In the description of the panel. And I really appreciate all of you and all the work that you're doing and contributing to the communities. And I personally look forward to assisting you in any way that I can. And yes, so with that, I just want to say, enjoy the rest of the Synth Summit today. The next panel coming up, we're moving over and we're going to be talking about sequencers. We need that in modular, right? Of course, where it's like the ongoing quest of of the perfect sequencer. But all right. With that being said,
Thanks,
thank
Trovarsi.
you all. Thank you all,
Good to
and
see you guys.
Thank you all.
I'll see you in the
Thanks,
next
Trovarsi.
one.
Stay lifted.
Thanks, everybody.
Ciao.
Peace.